Welcome to the Healthy Heart Show, where we pull back the curtain on conventional medicine and dive into the root causes of cardiovascular health. If you are concerned about high cholesterol, high blood pressure, heart attacks, stroke, or atrial fibrillation, this is the place for you. We will provide natural heart information that will help you prevent, treat, and reverse any ailment, leaving pills and procedures out of the picture. Here are your guides to holistic heart health, board-certified cardiologist and Amazon best-selling author, Dr. Jack Wolfson, and natural heart doctor, naturopathic physician, Dr. Lauren Latanza.
Hello, everyone. Dr. Jack Wolfson, board-certified cardiologist at Natural Heart Doctor. Welcome to another episode of the Healthy Heart Show. And as always, I bring the best guests from around the world that are the experts in their field to tell us everything about what they're up to. And remember, everything always pertains to cardiovascular health and wellness. We can always bring it back to heart health. And, at this time, I want to welcome Chef Pete Evans at PeteEvans.com is his website. If you don't know him, you're missing out on a lot. And I don't know where you're hiding. You must be under some rock somewhere if you don't know Chef Pete. Again, he is just world renowned, world recognized. He's owned restaurants. He's got the website. He's got tons of different books. He's been on television. He's got a podcast. He's a well-known public speaker. Let's get rolling, Pete. How you doing?
Hey, Jack. Thanks. I'm really well, thank you. My dog has just come to say hello too. So
and he's a dog lover too, which is even better, right? It's even better.
Yeah. Thanks for having me too, and g'day to everybody out there wherever you are around the world. Great to connect.
Well, again, thanks for taking time and away from again all your different things that you're doing, and of course, family. And you've got a couple of kids, right?
Yeah, I do. I have two teenage daughters. They're with me at the moment. They're 15 and 16, and it's exciting times. We had a big night of playing Uno last night, so. I'm sure you have that game. Uno. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but that was good. Hopefully, we'll go for a surf today.
Yeah, no, I think it is Uno, but I think listen, you're having kids, children in this crazy world right now. It's such a precarious time, us, we've got 4 children, including a 9-month-old, and it's the greatest blessing in the world. But it is that thing about how do you bring children into this crazy world, and really where so much is going on right now with things like freedom of speech. And I know you've been very outspoken and you've been censored. So maybe kind of talk about. Let me do this. Let me let you give some of the backstory about you, and of course becoming a chef and a family man and a businessman, and then we can get into the censorship issues.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've got a story just like everybody else. No, very unique to me, and very happy to share it. So I became a chef pretty much to earn an income. And I thought it was a wonderful life skill because I actually didn't know what I wanted to do when I was around the age of 16, 17. I knew university wasn't the course for me because school, it didn't really interest me for those 12 years that I was already there. So I wanted to get a trade, and I looked at all the trades or careers that I could get. And I looked at all the trades that were available to do an apprenticeship. And at the time, like now, there was building, like electricians, plumbers, butchers, hairdressers, and the list goes on. And none of them really resonated with me because I wanted to learn a life skill that I could use for the rest of my life. And cooking for me made the most sense as a 17-year-old because I'd worked in some fast food restaurants through my high school years. So I enjoyed the energy that came from that environment. And I liked the structure and systems of cooking. So I decided to just learn how to cook. And my short-term goal was just to finish an apprenticeship, which was 4 years in duration. And my number one goal was to be able to move out of home away from my parents or my mum at the time. She was a single mum. And after 17 years, I thought time to spread my wings and learn some independence. So as soon as I got my job, I moved out of home at the age of 17 and learned how to cook. And it was a wonderful life lesson, that's for sure. And something that I truly appreciate and value more so now than I ever have as a 48-year-old father. And as you said, businessman and restaurateur, and somebody that wants to live for as long as possible in this beautiful world in which we inhabit. I do believe, and it's no coincidence that I'm wearing my food as medicine shirt tonight for this chat, is that food is one of the fundamental keys or foundational principles that once we understand how it works for us for long-term sustainable health, it makes our life a lot more easier to navigate and to thrive. And it took me about 20 years of being in the culinary arts to finally have that epiphany of how important food is for actual health, because we don't get taught those things at school. It's like doctors don't get taught about nutrition. Chefs don't really get taught about nutrition. We get taught how to make things delicious, how to put combinations of foods together from inspiration from around the world. And the last 10 years, I've really focused on the nutritional benefits of and the dietary principles for long-term sustainable health. And I've got to say, I'm loving cooking more now with that understanding and going back to school, basically, to learn how powerful food is on so many levels, not just the physicality of what happens once we eat it, but also the emotional, mental, and even spiritual states that can come from eating a nutrient-dense food, also hunting, fishing, as well as growing your own food and also fasting. You know, there's so many beautiful things that when we really think about how food can connect us to nature and connect us to ourselves and to our higher consciousness or expanded consciousness, it's such a beautiful thing. So yes, I'm very blessed to have gone on that journey. And you mentioned censorship. And it's really interesting when I started to investigate the power of food as a medicine or as a tool, I was quick to discover how corrupt the systems are that pertain to this, the food industry, plus also the medical industry, pharmaceutical industry. They are so intertwined with corruption and just lie after lie after lie and corruption after corruption after corruption, that it really opened my eyes to a broader viewpoint of the world in which we inhabit, that it isn't all rosy and rainbows and unicorns and people wanting to help each other. I realized very quickly after investigating and learning more about the food system that it is pretty much designed to keep us sick and to keep us away from long-term sustainable health. So my censorship came pretty early on. I was fortunate enough to create a documentary called The Magic Pill, which ended up on Netflix, plus a couple of TV series, which we also produced ourselves and self-funded, called The Paleo Way, which ended up being broadcast around the world. And when they went out, I felt the wrath, so to speak, of the people that had the most to lose from this information being shared to such a wide audience. And I had the Australian Medical Association come out and publicly say that I'm dangerous and that my film should be removed from Netflix immediately. I've had the presidents of the Australian Dietitians Association numerous times come out and say that what I'm promoting and what others are promoting is dangerous and will kill you at an early age. I've had the mainstream media pile on in their ridicule and attempt of character assassination for the last decade. And so I've navigated that through pretty much the better part of 9 to 10 years. And when coronavirus entered our awareness or our consciousness last year, I could see the same signs of corruption and lies and deceit. It's so easy to see, especially when they always try to bring it back to the science, and the science is settled, because I just witnessed that for a decade in the food science arena. And just to put this into context, we had close to 2 million followers as the Pete Evans personal page on Facebook and Instagram. And over the years of just promoting the dietary approach, we shared thousands upon thousands of anecdotal stories. We had a 10-week online program where 100,000 people came through. And basically, we had 0 complaints in that time. But what we managed to share was anecdotal stories in the thousands, maybe even the tens of thousands of people reversing type 2 diabetes, putting their autoimmune disease in remission, putting their cancer into remission, changing the behavior of their children with behavioral disorders such as autism and ADHD. We had countless stories of people getting off the antidepressant medication, no longer being diagnosed with depression or anxiety, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And the powers that be did not like those stories circulating. And so when the coronavirus came out last year or 18 months ago, I started speaking out and asking the questions that no journalist seemed to want to ask. And pretty abruptly, I was deplatformed without warning from Facebook and Instagram. Most people get a warning or they get put into Facebook jail or Instagram jail for 7 days or 30 days. I was permanently deleted like that for still no excuse or no explanation. So that was 2 million followers that I couldn't reach anymore. And I don't like the word followers, but that's the vernacular that's used. And what's interesting about that, in Australia, we have a population of 25 million people. So we're close to 10% of the population because most of the followers were from Australia. So I had one of the largest social media accounts as a high-profile celebrity in this country. And that went against the mainstream narrative. So they've called me a racist, a neo-Nazi, a danger to society, and the list goes on and on. They have attempted, which they've done pretty well, to, when they labelled me a neo-Nazi and a racist, again, complete and utter lies and fabrication. Pretty much every single business that I was involved with publicly dumped me to the media and said they want nothing to do with me ever again. And we do not support Pete Evans. And these are people and businesses that I'd had very deep and long-term relationships with, I would call friends. And still to this day, pretty much not one of them has the decency to phone or message or email about that decision to publicly cut off our business relationships. And I understand why, in a cancel culture where people are protective of their business and assets and their reputation, I understand why that is, but I also find it very peculiar that these people would do that, knowing that they know who I am as a human being, as a person, and what we stand for as a company. So, and just to put this into context for people that haven't heard why I would have such a large following in this country, is I hosted Australia's #1 TV program for over 10 years. It was on free to air. It was in prime time. It was a reality TV show, very similar to what you would have as Top Chef or Master Chef. Ours was called My Kitchen Rules. So I had 20 years in the entertainment industry as a celebrity chef, which I was always touted as the boy next door and nice fella. But then when I started speaking out about how you can become healthy through food, that changed very quickly to the mainstream media no longer referred to me as the boy next door. They referred to me as a crackpot, as crazy, as dangerous, as a threat to society. And they did everything they could while I was promoting healthy food for a decade to create ridiculous stories to tarnish my reputation to the general public. But inadvertently, what it did is just raised our profile even more and brought more people that were disillusioned with the system, disillusioned with parts of the medical establishment to want to learn more because they kept hearing all of these anecdotal stories. So that's a big summation there, but I just thought I'd give it some context to paint the picture for people. So thanks for allowing me to do that.
No, and obviously you brought up so many amazing points in there that deserve time to unpack and discuss. But I think that as you've kind of lost some of those sponsors and some of those relationships, and they're doing it, of course, to save their hides, to save their businesses, their revenues. But the problem, of course, does go back to that Nazi adage, if you will, where it's like everybody's afraid to speak out. And because you're afraid to speak out, the people in power keep coming after more and more people. And if you think you're safe from their agenda, you're incorrect. You may, again, be safe right now, but as they keep coming after more and more and more and control more and more, again, you're next. Again, it's like they came after the Jews. I didn't say anything. They came after my neighbor. They didn't say anything. And finally, when they came after me, there was nobody there to speak for me. And that is clearly where this is going. And I think you're right. You were kind of king of the world when you're talking about pastries and sugar-filled treats, and what are some new ways to mix sugar and butter, and everybody loves you when you're talking about that. But now you talk about food as medicine, and they're like, wait a second, what medicine is medicine? Like, no, pharmaceuticals are medicine, and that's the end of the conversation. And I think listen, take the United States, the USDA's food pyramid. Like, on what planet of delusion would people think that in the old pyramid that the grain category would be bigger than the vegetable category?
I mean, it's common sense. It actually has come down to common sense of what it. Well, let me put it this way. What I found is the most startling realization that I've had over the years when we're talking about food and what humans eat is that I live on a farm, and I'm blessed to have have this experience at the moment for the last 10 years. And I watch all the animals, whether it's the bird life, the insects, our horses that we've got, and intuitively, every single species knows what to eat. Every year I watch the birds are being just hatching. You can probably hear them in the background here, but it's spring here, and so the bird life is just beautiful at the moment. All the chicks are hatching, and it always amazes me that we're the only species in the world that actually has no freaking idea what is good for us and what is natural for us. We have that many dietary principles out there competing for airtime or competing for ego time. We have so many frankenfoods, as so many people say, that have been created with ingredients that you just would never consider to put into your body, yet people do it on a day-to-day basis. We have lost touch with our instinct and intuition. That, to me, is the most alarming thing that's going on in the world right now. The fact that as a human species, we don't have I don't want to say the intelligence, because we have the innate intelligence, but we're not using our common sense, our intuition, our instinct, and our innate intelligence to be able to navigate our way into a state of, again, long-term sustainable health, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Like, if this isn't ringing alarm bells for every single person around the world, and I do believe what is happening right now over the last 18 months is the wake-up call, is the alarm being rung for humanity. And if people still cannot hear the species is in dire trouble, we risk facing potential extinction through what's coming down the line, through our choices or the mandates and the coercion and the manipulation and again the lies that are happening, then I am deeply concerned. And one of the things I've noticed over the last 18 months is, and it's a pretty heavy conclusion that I've come to, is if 70% or more are obese and overweight and have metabolic disorder because of the choices they've made in their life, and now there's more and more coercion and manipulation and intimidation and division that's coming through for a medical tyrannical state, like, it's going to get ugly. It already is ugly. It's going to get dark, and it already is dark, but it's going to get a lot darker unless we wake up and make the wisest choices possible, activate our innate intelligence, activate and connect to our intuition, our gut, and stand tall and use all of our unique gifts and strengths as human beings to work together to create a healthier existence in connection with nature and in connection with every other species, including ourselves. That's where I think we're being invited to do that right now. So going back to the food pyramid, I mean, the lack of common sense or the brainwashing that has occurred through the mainstream narrative, through the medical system, through the dietitians associations around the world, and through political agendas and the agricultural industries, as well as the multinational food corporations. And if people can't see that yet, it's concerning, because it doesn't need to be like that. As you know, as a cardiologist and a health expert, you've seen just the power of one choice of changing your food choices can have on somebody. And I've often said this in interviews. I said, imagine, because people say, how do we fix this? How do we fix the situation we're in? I said, it's simple. Start with the food that you eat. I said, it's that simple. If everybody changed the food that they ate to be supporting holistic farming practices, sustainable fishing practices, intelligent use of the land that actually regenerates soil and the microbes and the microorganisms that are in there. That one act of defiance, but we don't even have to look at it as defiance. That one act of self-love, just that one act. And if everybody did that, what that would do would change everything, because it would change. The multinational food corporations would either adapt or dissolve into obscurity. The advertising revenue that came from that would then also change the mainstream media and what they put out there as far as that goes. It would change big agriculture to adapt to more holistic practices, which would then change the lobbying for the governments. It would change the government system. It would change the medical system. It would change the pharmaceutical industry. It would change everything, because as we know, and I'll throw a statistic out there, or a percentage, 70 to 80% of all chronic illness is lifestyle related. And I'm not making that claim. It's well documented. So imagine if our lifestyle choices were in harmony with our species. Imagine the medical industry losing 80% of its business. And I would say within the space of 12 months, it would change dramatically. What would happen to the pharmaceutical industries if they lost 80% of their client base?
Well, I think, Pete, now we know why you're such a threat to the agenda and why you've been censored, and your points are just so fantastic and so spot on. And multiple times in there, you said common sense. And I say that all the time as well. It's like, there's no common sense in the medical community. My medical doctors, that I train with, the other cardiologists, we don't get trained in common sense. We actually get brainwashed out of common sense nutritional things, common sense lifestyle things. You don't have to teach a zebra in the wild what to eat, how to live. Same thing with a lion or a tiger or a bird or a fish. They just know what to do. But for some reason, again, the brainwashing that's happened, the common sense is gone. You talk about all these beautiful utopian ideas that, again, how do we get this out faster? Because everybody in the United States, for example, is sitting on their couch, getting their food delivered, by DoorDash and Grubhub and Uber Eats. They're glued to the television set. They're watching CNN. They're worried about variants. They're worried about viruses. They're worried about, do they need booster shots? Can they travel with, who's going to get vaccinated? The vaccine passports. If we're going to topple the industry and they keep censoring us, they keep kicking people like you off social. I'm frankly shocked that I'm not kicked off social. I was kicked off of Pinterest a couple of years ago. Vimeo shut me down, but I'm still currently on Facebook. I'm still currently on Instagram. After I saw the writing on the wall in January of 2021, I told Twitter to kiss my ass, and I deplatformed myself from them. But yeah, I mean, how do we rattle the cage and wake up these 80% with this metabolic syndrome sitting on their couch, eating pizza, drinking beer, smoking marijuana, watching CNN, watching Fox, whatever their poison is, watching mainstream? How do we reach these people?
Many might like what I'm going to say, but I'll say it anyway, is it's not our responsibility to wake them up. And I say that with the greatest compassion, because there's so many out there like yourself, and I would classify me as that, as a warrior for truth. But I've come to realize that we need to always have free will. So the people that are sitting there eating their pizzas and being brainwashed, they have chosen that path. As a human being, we've always got control of our choices. Even if we are being brainwashed or manipulated, there's still, again, that choice where that person of a day or a night can say, you know what, maybe I'll cook something for myself. Maybe I won't order that pizza. Oh, I don't know how to cook. Well, the internet is a wonderful tool. All of this is a wonderful tool. Food is a wonderful tool for health, or it can be used as a tool for poisoning ourselves. The internet is a wonderful tool for sharing information, or it can be a horrendous tool for manipulation and comparison, as we're seeing with social media and the like. So we have to respect everybody's journey wherever they are on this path. Like myself, I spent 20 years cooking those ingredients that now I would never put into my body. But for 20 years, I had no idea that me cooking an apple pie, for instance, with the refined flour, the refined sugar, and the shit butter and whatever it was into the mix was contributing to my ill health plus my customers' ill health. So where
Pete, along those lines too, it's like, I don't know if you harbor much guilt. My guess is hopefully you don't, because each one of us is on our own path. But again, it's like, do I feel guilty that I was giving people Lipitor, Crestor, Zocor, aspirin, doing unnecessary procedures? And it's kind of like, yes, I do, but yes, I don't, because again, I was just on my journey. I didn't know any better. I mean, it isn't the problem with the people who know better, but they deny it, or in an evil way, if you will, continue to propagate, these food-based myths. Or it's like the Marlboro saying, hey, cigarettes don't cause cancer, when they know that it causes cancer.
The Healthy Heart Show will be right back after we take this quick break to hear from our sponsor. Would you like to drink great tasting coffee that's also good for your heart health? Cardiology Coffee is your answer. This 5-star rated coffee is delicious. It's a gourmet coffee that begins with whole organic beans, hand-selected and carefully roasted. It's tested and certified to be free of pesticides, mold, and other toxins. Cardiology coffee is great for your heart, and you're going to love how it tastes. Order now online at cardiologycoffee.com. Now back to the Healthy Heart Show.
Again, I'll bring it back to where we're at. And I do believe this is the alarm is ringing loud and clear for most people. And the ones that still can't hear it, like you were saying, that first they came for the Jewish, then they came for my neighbor, and then they came for me, and there was no one there. What I believe is going to happen is the alarm has rung for many of us over the years to get us to a point where I will consciously choose what's right for me and my family and my community. Now, this might be a small minority at the moment. What we're witnessing every day is more and more people waking up and asking questions. It may not be happening as quick as many would like for this to happen, but we sort of have to trust and accept and surrender that it's out of our control, that we can't manipulate the manipulated. And they have to wake up or come to their own realizations when it's appropriate for them, when it's the golden moment for them. And for some, it may not happen in their lifetime. And we have to accept that and respect that and have compassion and empathy for these people that will never make the right choices. And I don't even like to use the word right choices, but maybe the wisest choices for themselves. One thing I've realized is that when I mentioned the 100,000 people that had come to do our program and the stories that we shared, the ones that got it, the ones that changed their lives, and we're talking usually women and men in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s was our demographic. These people had got to rock bottom in their life. They tried everything. They tried being to 20 specialists. They've had that many different operations to have parts of them removed and cut out, and they've been in so much pain for such a huge part of their life. Some people were sick for 50 years, and then they said, "There's more to my life than this. I want to live, and I want to live without pain, and I want to live under my own rules." And those rules are the ones that are in harmony with our species and our connection to nature. So what I'm alluding to here or presenting here is many human beings need to hit rock bottom before that spark happens for them. Now, the people that are sitting there watching television, mainstream, eating pizzas, drinking the beer, or doing whatever it is to numb themselves and suppress themselves, because that's what it is. It's a numbing of their human spirit. And one of the greatest quotes I ever heard is, one of the greatest fears people have is of their own potential. So people suppress their own potential by these numbing processes. So will there come a time for your neighbor who is poisoning themselves with the information that they're watching or hearing on a day-to-day basis, or the food that they're consuming, or the medicines they're putting into their body? What will be their breaking point where they'll go, you know what, enough is enough. I need to sort my shit out because I don't want to be this person anymore. This is not who I came here to be. I remember when I was a child, I had this energy, these dreams. And I got to tell you, Jack, one of the greatest gifts that the people that took control of their lives again would share with me, and I'm talking people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was like this mantra that kept coming through. I'm ready to live. I'm ready to live. And what that meant to me is they're ready to create the magic in the world that we're all here to do. They're ready to use their strengths, because we all have these unique strengths and gifts in our unique wonder as human beings. What we're seeing at the moment is the manipulation of homogeny, of the ruling elite wanting us, basically trying to rid us of our uniqueness, of our wonder, of our strengths and our gifts. And where I see humanity, how we can get through this and change this is to embrace our strengths, but also to look very hard at our weaknesses, at our dark parts as our shadow, do equal work in discovering why we have these limiting self-belief systems or patterns that flow through us. Did I learn that from my mum, my mother, or my father, my schooling system, the mainstream media, the television shows that I watched, from my friends and neighbors that I didn't want to upset by being different? Did I learn this by being a conformist, by being a good citizen that didn't want to stand out from the crowd because black sheep are not very well liked? These are big questions that each of us at one point in time will face. Many get to ask these questions on our deathbed, which is why a lot of people end up forgiving themselves and others and making that human connection again when they are in a life or death situation. And I've got to tell you, we are currently in a life or death situation. So we're going to see more and more people wake up as more and more of their freedoms are taken away from them, and they realize their human spirit no longer has the freedom to express itself in the way that intuitively and instinctively it is here to express. And I've also come to the realization that it may not happen in my lifetime, and I'm okay with that. I've come to realize that, to accept the reality that whatever happens is happening for the greater good, even though it could get really, 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 really dark as we go into this journey. Hopefully it doesn't. But again, looking at human nature and what it takes for us to change, I don't think people are suffering enough just yet. And the ones that have, and I'll just finish this last one, and the ones that have gone through their own dark night of the soul, their own hero's journey, their own awakening process, whenever that may have been, they're usually the ones that are being censored at the moment, because they have been sort of shouting, like, shit's going to get real really quickly. Trust us. We're not here to belittle anybody or create any more fear, but there's some work that needs to be done, and you will do it at one point along this journey. The longer you leave it, the harder it will become. If we do it now, then it won't be such a difficult journey. And what I'm witnessing with a lot of the people that have gone through this process of self-realization and looking at their deeper, darker shadows and selves, perfect timing for my dog crying at the door, is they're putting into play how they want to live their life. A lot of people are building communities. A lot of people are living off the land in a sustainable way. A lot of people are opting out of these systems to show that there's a different way to experience life, and a much more simpler way to experience life. So I'll leave you with that, because again, I've gone onto a long rant.
Well, no, I mean, Pete, this is all totally brilliant take, and I appreciate you taking the time. And your dogs, they're kind of whining. I mean, again, just so many different things in there that you said, and I'm trying to be optimistic. I hate to be, fatalistic about this, but again, there's so many people that they're willing to accept the government takeover of healthcare and of our rights, and stay at home and social isolation and social distancing and mandatory shots and all these different things, and how people are willing to accept that. And I think that the risk, of course, is that they wake up one day and it's already too late. Again, there is no opportunity to change, because the government, it's become that 1984, it's become that dystopian society. one of my favorite comedians, George Carlin. George Carlin talked about how, and he's talking like 30 years ago, how everyone's talking about save the earth, save the earth. And he's like, don't worry, the earth is going to be just fine. All humans are going to be dead. We're going to be long gone. And the earth is going to be like, hey, time for, now we're cleansing ourselves. The earth is going to be just fine. We'll be all gone. But let me kind of lighten it up a little bit from this, but give me, of course, you are a paleo guy. You've written multiple books, best-selling books about paleo, obviously theory, and of course, recipes. I encourage everybody listening to go check out Chef Pete Evans, all of his different books. Support Pete. If you believe in this message, like I'm sure you do, because you're here, again, support Pete, get his books. But again, like dial in with everything Pete's doing. But tell me, celebrity chef expert, tell me your take on carnivore.
Carnivore, really, really interesting. So my understanding of this is over the last decade, we've been promoting a paleo ketogenic approach. Paleo just means old. Pretty much it's meat and vegetables. That was the perfect line that we had in our film, The Magic Pill. We had a fellow working with the Indigenous here in Australia. And he said, the way that we talk about this is it's just meat and vegetables. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. And obviously meat means any animal from land or sea, and vegetables means plant material, pretty much fruits and vegetables. And I have come to my realization is that we can go between both of those realms, between the meat side or the animal side to the plant-based side. Now, for me personally, I function better most of the year on a more carnivorous diet, with meat making up or seafood making up the majority of the food that I have on the plate. And generally in the warmer months when it's summer, I tend to include more of the plant materials such as fruits and vegetables, so to speak. So I have spoken with many experts that have used the carnivore approach to great benefit for themselves and for their patients or clients. And I've spoken with many people that have used a plant-based approach or more plant-based approach that have equal outcomes as well. Personally, I adopted a plant-based vegan approach in my early 20s. And I did that for 4 years religiously, and it did not work for me. I tend, if people ask me my honest opinion, I would say meat and seafood is where it's at. Now, how much plant material you decide to add to your meat or seafood depends on you and potentially the time of year and the region in which you live in. So I would say become your own detective, your own doctor. I'm a huge fan of holistic farming practices. We just actually had the mobile butcher out on our farm yesterday, or our neighbour's farm. We have 8 cattle together, and it was the second cow that we've killed. And we made beautiful sausages. We've got mince. We've got all the organs. We've got great cuts of meat from that cow, and that will feed our family pretty much for the next year. So if you have ethical questions about the taking of life, I would say get into nature, watch the birds, get into the ocean, go snorkeling or scuba diving, watch the animal life, go to onto a reserve, watch the big game cats, watch nature, because everything is eating something. Even the plants, some of them are eating animals. The plants need blood and bone. We have to go back to understanding how nature works, and everything is eating something else. And in nature, it's brutal the way that life takes life. We took a life of a cow that we have raised over the last year or two, and it was one shot to the head and slitting of the throat. It was dispatched. humanely as we could on the property, no transportation. Now that one animal, from rule of thumb, it can feed a family for pretty much nearly a year. So just take that into consideration if you have ethical concerns. All I would say is support the farmers. If you're not doing it yourself, support the farmers that are doing the holistic farming practices, because they do care about, as a rule, they care about the land, they care about nature, they care about the animals they raise, and they will be the healthiest animals you can put into your body. And for me, that's where it's at. The healthiest food is ethically and morally grown, raised, caught, killed. And I'll finish off by saying this, talking about intuition, because that's our instinct. Because I was having a ceremonial session a few weeks ago, and one of the things that came to me in that experience was I got really hungry in the experience, and I was going through my database of all the ingredients and all the recipes that I could eat, and it's quite extensive after 30 years of being a professional chef. And the one thing that actually came to me in the questioning of what I should be eating more of, that was my question basically, and it was game, wild hunted or wild caught game, or animals from land or sea. And as soon as I had that realization, I was like, okay, I get it. I need to take in more of the energetic spirit of animals that are wild, that are free, that are not caged. Now, you can interpret that spiritually, metaphorically, any way that you wish. But for me, with what's going on in the world, for some reason, my body is saying, you need more life force, spiritual energy from animals that are free, instead of the ones that are farmed and contained. And it makes a lot of sense if you actually think about it with what we're going through at the moment. And if you believe in the energetics of food and our belief systems, then anybody listening to this may like to start eating perhaps some more seafood that's been wild caught and sustainable, catch it yourself, even better, or leaning on some friends or family members, or start hunting if it's hunting season, and understanding why every single culture around the world respected and put so much emphasis into the hunting and the spiritual appreciation and respect of nature in the circle of life. And one thing that we can take from this, like yesterday when we were butchering up the cow that we raised, is nothing went to waste.
All right, so give me a recipe. Give me a recipe for liver. Give me your Chef Pete Evans, celebrity chef Pete Evans, here on the Healthy Heart Show. Because obviously you know this as well as I do. Like, so many people balk at the organs, yet the organs, of course, are the healthiest cuts that are there and prized amongst all societies in history of the world, and animals in the wild. But how do we make this more palatable to the guy sitting on the couch eating, who would typically be eating pizza and watching CNN? How do we change that guy?
Perfect. Great question. And we did it yesterday. And this is why it's so beautiful. You take the offal, whether it's the liver, the heart, the kidneys, whatever it may be, and you can get your butcher, or you can do it yourself. You can chop it up really fine or mince it so it's ground up, and then you add it to the meat. So you add it to the ground meat that isn't the organ meat. So rule of thumb might be 5% organ meat into 95% of the ground meat and fat. So we did that yesterday. We probably, my neighbor and I, because we're sharing for our families, we minced probably at least half of the beast, half of the cattle. We ground through the mincer, and into that we put most of the organ meat. except we kept the testicles and the sweetbreads, which is the glands, which is so because I wanted to cook the testicles, the balls, and the sweetbreads separately. But we actually this time, because last time we kept all the organ meat separately, but this time because he's got young children and my children as well, we thought if we're going to do ground meat, we can turn them into burgers, we can turn them into sausages, we can turn them into taco mix, we can turn it into bolognese sauce, we can turn it into shepherd's pie. The list goes on and on and on and on, what we can do with mince or ground meat, as you call it in the States. But the addition of the offal in there, the kids won't know it's in there. You won't know it's in there if you're fussy or you don't like the taste of offal. And you are getting your pretty much daily dose of multivitamins in the most delicious food form that you can. So that's where I'd start. Or pate is the perfect introduction to liver for anybody that is squeamish about eating offal. The French are masters and have been masters of the culinary world for hundreds of years, but also every single culture around the world is masters of their own cuisine, and every single culture has their own special recipes for liver, for blood, for kidneys, for lungs, for intestines or tripe, for the cheeks, for the eyes, for the tail, for the genitalia, the balls. Our dog was eating when you go to the pet food store, they've got dried pig's penises and all of these things that you can get. And again,
the dogs know, and they don't care what part it came from, and they've got no premonitions.
And I'll just finish by saying this, because I mentioned this before, and the intuition that, and some people debate this, but just on a common sense level, if we're eating the liver, I honestly believe it helps our liver. If we're eating the heart, I believe it helps our heart. If we're eating the blood of a healthy animal, and this has to come from healthy animals, not some caged feedlot, fucking tortured specimen that is living a horrendous life. If we spend our money supporting the farmers, again, more and more farmers will adopt these principles. It's business. It's so simple. But if we believe in the energetics of food, the more of these organs that we eat, the brains, why is it that once upon a time we would feed babies the brains, the bone marrow? We have a book called Baba Yum Yum, which was one of the first things to be cancelled 5 years ago by the Dietitians Association. They didn't want our book out there. They basically burnt them or destroyed them. It's out there on Amazon if anybody's interested. It's a book for babies and parents, and for preconception, because every single culture in the world prior to our modern day would plan their next generation and the generation after. And the women and the men that were going to conceive the next generation were given the best of the hunt. And guess what the best food of the hunt or the kill was? It was the organ meats. And what did they feed the babies? It was the brains. It was all of this stuff. So again, we need to tap into our intuition. We need to tap into our instinct. We need to tap into our common sense. We need to tap into our heart for what is happening right now. I know you like to bring things back to the heart. Our heart is a remarkable organ, but more so than that, I interviewed a fellow yesterday, Dr. Bear Lando, who he calls our heart our big brain. It has everything for us if we tap into here more from a spiritual, emotional, mental, and even physical point of view, tap into our heart to help us make the choices in life. And some of these choices that we're going to have to make now and in the future are going to be the heaviest decisions we've ever had to face in our life. And the way we can navigate this is to take the time to sit, to ask our hearts, what is the correct course of action here? And if we don't get the answers immediately, keep asking, be patient, keep asking, be careful not to get trapped into our mind or our ego or our brain for the answer. I believe this is an invitation for us to step into our heart space and really, really, really trust in that, trust in our intuition, and perhaps get a nice beef heart or chicken heart or duck heart or lamb heart to help strengthen that heart muscle. And I've got some beautiful recipes for you, but all you need to do is type in best heart recipes, Vietnamese, Chinese, Italian, French, Russian, Fijian, whatever it may be, South American. The South Americans know how to cook heart. The Chinese know how to cook animal hearts. The Vietnamese know how to cook animal hearts. The Eastern Europeans know how to cook animal hearts. So there's no excuse, because every single part of an animal or every single vegetable or plant material, there are delicious recipes just waiting for you to discover. And once you discover that and you bring up that life skill that we started this conversation with, why I entered into the cooking realm, life just becomes so much more beautiful and richer and more delicious by the day, because you're cooking the most delicious foods in the world. So thanks for this wonderful conversation.
No, fantastic, Chef Pete. Let me ask you one more thing, because you said everything can be found in a recipe. Give me your favorite recipe that includes durian.
Durian. I would say durian ice cream or sorbet, actually. If you've never had that, check out that recipe, because you can make it taste good. You just might need to add some stuff into it.
All right. So for those who don't know what durian is, you probably don't want to know. It's not really necessary. It's the stinkiest, smelliest fruit on the planet that comes from the South Pacific. But in any case, Chef Pete Evans, this has been just so, I got a million questions that we can talk about, and really just everybody wake up, everybody listen to what Chef Pete just had to say, again, on freedom, on the ability to choose to live the right way, mind, body, spirit, to eat the right foods, to cherish those foods, nourish yourself, with the foods, get it into your children, of course, and to your future generations. This is the way we're going to change the planet and save the world. Pete, tell us the best way to find you.
I'm on Telegram. Telegram seems to be pretty much the last bastion of free speech currently. More will emerge. So Telegram is a social media network, Chef Pete Evans. But we also have a platform, a TV network, basically. It is a one-stop shop, which has our documentaries plus many other censored documentaries on vaccinations as well, and many different topics. It's called the evolvenetwork.tv. So to type it into your web browser, evolvenetwork.tv. And in that platform, we have 1,000 recipes. We have meal plans for carnivore, for paleo, for keto, for budget friendly, talking about the mints. We also have plant-based in there as well for people that choose to explore that. We have guided meditations, we have breathwork tutorials. We have the intention with the Evolve Network platform was to create an uncensored platform where I could put as much information as possible, and from leading experts around the world that contribute to the platform. We've got Greg Braden, we've got Matt Belair, we have Dan Vinay, we have Laurie Ladd. We cover spirituality. We cover all the aspects of long-term sustainable health. It's a subscription-based platform. It's probably in US dollars, it's about $75 a year or $7 a month. So we've kept it as cheap as possible. So to help us keep producing and creating new content, we'd love for your help in this. And what you'll get for that $75 will be a mountain of beautiful information that you can decipher and hopefully incorporate into your life to live a long, healthy, powerful existence with a lot of common sense and instinct. Cheers, everybody.
Fantastic. We'll put all that into the show notes. We'll make sure we get it out onto email blasts and social. And again, Chef Pete Evans, it's a pleasure to talk to you as always. Thank you again. I'm Dr. Jack Wolfson, cardiologist, natural heart doctor, and this is another episode of the Healthy Heart Show. We will see you next time. Be well.
Love you all. Bye.
That does it for today's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Healthy Heart Show. Please help us get the word out by liking and subscribing to our podcast and our Facebook page, Natural Heart Doctor. Please show support for our podcast sponsor, Cardiology Coffee. your resource for organic, antioxidant-rich, mold and pesticide-free coffee shipped straight to your door. Learn more by adding @cardiologycoffee on Instagram and visiting cardiologycoffee.com. This podcast provides materials for information and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. We encourage you to contact your physician for any of the health issues discussed here.